In this video, if you've only got access to a single light, don't worry, I'll show you how to use it to create beautiful rim lighting around a static object. Hello, I'm Gavin Hoey and you're watching Adorama TV, brought to you by Adorama, the camera store that's got everything for us photographers. And in this video, I'm going to have a look at rim lighting, but using just one light. Now, to be clear, I am going to use one light, but I'm actually going to take multiple pictures lit from different angles and combine them all together inside of Photoshop to create the final image. Now, because I'm taking multiple images, it's really important that your subject matter is static. So today, I'm going to be photographing glassware. So let's get a light set, let's get shooting. So before I get going, let's be absolutely clear about this. If you had multiple lights, could set them all up together and take one single frame, this would be a much better shot. It would be easier and potentially better quality. But maybe like me, you only have one Flashpoint Xplor 400 and one StripBox, in which case, this is the technique we're going to use. Now, speaking of light, the size really does make a difference. If I was to use a small source of light, the reflection I'd get on the shiny surface, the bottle in this case, really wouldn't look particularly good. You want a big, long strip of light to give you those long strips of highlights that will really help to rim the outside of this bottle. Now, you'll notice I'm using a tripod for this setup, and that's there just so when I come to the Photoshop side of things, these images will be roughly aligned. And I say roughly because even if I do something like adding a sandbag to my tripod to make it even more sturdy, I've turned off the image stabilization. In here, in my small home studio, the flooring is the problem. It's brilliant for portraits, but it's terrible for product photography because it just moves around so much. Having said that, anything you can do to help is a good thing. Now, my camera settings. I'm using my flash sync speed, 250th of a second, f8, ISO 200, and if I take a picture without any flash firing, I'm looking for the classic no flash, no picture setup. That means I've got total control of the light in this room. To completely rim light an object, I actually only need 3 images. I need to light both sides and from the top. So let's start with one of the side images. I'm working at f8 in my camera. I'd like this light to produce f8 amount of light. So let's see, I could do this by trial and error, but I've got a flash meter and I can tell that is f4. So I need to increase the light by a couple of stops and try that again to get to f8. So at f8, this is correctly lit. Let's just take a shot, see how we go. And that looks great. I've got a lovely rim lighting down the right-hand side as we look at this. And when you go in close, you can see that rim lighting goes right the way to the edge of the bottle. Now, if I'd had the light just a bit further around the side here, I'd have ended up with a side-lit shot. The light wouldn't have gone right the way to the edge of the bottle, and that would have made the post-processing a little bit more tricky. So for the second shot, I've moved the StripBox around to the side. One of the advantages of the Xplor 400 is it has an excellent modelling light, so I can actually see really clearly the light shining off the bottle. But I still need it to be f8. I need the light to match the previous picture. So trial and error is a possibility, but it's much easier if you use a flash meter. And sure enough, that looks exactly the same lighting as the previous picture, just on the other side of the bottle. So for my third picture, I've moved the light so it's above, but still behind my subject. I still need this to be f8, so let's see what we're getting. Pretty close. Yep, f8. Okay, good. Here we go. And what this light does is put a little rim of light around the top of the bottle and also the bottom of the bottle as well. Now, although I only really need 3 images to rim light my object, there's plenty of reasons why you might need extra photos. For example, maybe you need to light the front of your object for some reason. Or maybe, like me, you want to do something interesting with the background. So I've got my Xplor 400, but this time I've swapped out the StripBox for a small reflector. I'm just going to pop that down there just so it adds a little arc of light directly behind my bottle to separate it from the background. Now, when it comes to choosing the exposure for this, I'm not going to meter it, I'm actually going to do this by eye. So if I put it to its lowest possible power and then bring it up one stop at a time, I'll have a choice of images, each one just a little bit brighter than the previous one, and I can choose the best one when I get back to Photoshop. So the milk bottle worked really well, but it's not the most exciting of subjects, so let's get rid of that and replace it with this. So I'm going to do exactly the same technique all over again, but this time with a perfume bottle, hopefully get a shot that's a bit more dynamic. This is one of those cases where the photography really is only half the story. The post-processing is just as important. And although I'd much rather set up multiple lights and do it all in one shot, there is a very slight advantage to doing it this way. Let's have a look at the photos. So I've got 4 main images. I've got lit from the right, lit from the left, lit from above, and background lit. So to bring all 4 of those together into one, here in Photoshop, I'm going to go to File, go to Scripts, and load files into Stack. I'll add in the open files, and if my images were really far out of alignment, I could get Photoshop to attempt to automatically align them. I won't, I'm going to do it myself. There will be some aligning to do, that's just how this goes, but I think it's better done myself. So Photoshop will gather those images together, make 4 layers, each one its own image. Just to make my life a bit easier, I'll turn off the bottom 2 for now and have a look at the top 2. So to blend the lighting together from these 2 images, I'm going to change the layer blending mode from normal to screen. And instantly, that seems to have worked. Now if screen isn't for you, you could always try the light and blend mode. It will give a slightly different look and feel, but I'll use screen. That's okay, but a close-up look at some of the fine detail will reveal whether this really is in alignment, and I've got a sneaky feeling, looking at these 2 very fine, faint hairs, it's not. So I'll use the lower layer, make that active, make sure I have the Move tool active, which I do, and then use the cursor keys, that's the up, down, left, right arrows on the keyboard, just to line everything up, and I reckon that looks about right. Yeah, let's stop there, that's okay. So that's lined up those 2 layers. Let's switch on the next layer and repeat the process. So this one is going to be the overhead light. I just need to turn the blending mode into screen for the layer directly above it. And this time, well, this one adds quite a bit of extra detail. All I really want is just around the cap of the bottle. Everything else I don't think I need. So this is one of the advantages of doing it this way. You can choose what sort of light you turn on and what sort of light you don't use at all. So in this case, I'll make sure that layer is active, the lower layer, and then I'll use the layer mask, and hide all. Now that will hide everything about that layer completely from sight, but just to bring back the few bits that I need, I'll get the brush tool, make sure my brush color, the foreground color, is set to the opposite to the layer mask. The mask is black, my brush is white, that is exactly what I need. And then all I have to do is just paint over, and there's very few bits I actually want. I want the top of that, maybe the top of this, and that's probably it really, a few shiny bits to add in, but I don't think there's really much else to go. I think that's absolutely fine. I could add in the top of that, but I think that gets a bit too shiny and bright. So if there's an area you don't like what it's done, just press the X key and just paint it away again. Okay, that looks pretty good. So one more layer to go. I'll switch on the background or the bottom layer, and I could change the layer blending mode. There's not much to see really because most of it is masked away, but I'll do it anyway. Okay, let's check the alignment of this. Now, if there was ever a chance that things were going to be out of alignment, this is where you would see it the most, because you have one layer that is a silhouette and one layer that is lit, and you're going to see a sort of black and a white image effectively. It's really obvious any errors here. Again, working on the lower of the layers that's active, I'll get the Move tool and use the cursor keys just to nudge this back down. Go too far and I'll actually end up with a sort of white halo. Go too far the other way and I'll get a black shadow. So it's just a matter of lining these up best you can. That looks pretty good. I reckon there looks about right. Okay, so that's my main shots completed, but I know what you're thinking. What about the water spray? That's absolutely vital to this shot. Let's go get it. So I've got the water spray. I haven't loaded it in yet, so let's bring this in and add it manually, and you'll see why in a second. Select and select all, edit and copy, close that down, and then I'll make sure I'm working at the top of my layer stack, choose edit and paste, and that will pop it at the top. And when I change the blending mode to screen, we'll see just how much I move the bottle. So I couldn't squeeze the bulb and get everything to stay still. It all moved around. And I definitely couldn't have squeezed the bulb and taken this with one single shot. This is where multiple images really does help. So yeah, I'm really out of alignment here, but I'm not worried about that at all, because all I'm interested in is where the water is coming from. So the water comes from sort of there. That's it. Okay. Great. Let's mask everything away, layer down to layer mask and hide all. Once again, I'll get a brush. I'll make sure my brush color is the opposite to the mask and get a nice big brush and just click and paint that in. There you go. That's where the spray needs to be, just there and nowhere else. And with a few extra tweaks and adjustments, there it is. There's my final rimlet bottle picture completed. Rim lighting static objects with a single flash is perfectly possible. Is it better to use multiple flashes? Yes, absolutely. If you've got them, use them. But if you only have one flash, then make the most of what you've got. Now, if you've enjoyed this video or you've got any questions, leave me a comment below. Click on the bell icon for regular notifications of all the brand new videos right here on Adorama TV. And of course, click on that subscribe button. I'm Gavin Hoey. Thanks for watching.